the first thing I'd like to start with is probably the small business perspective, Jeff. Uh, I went through a lot of trends we're seeing in the data. How does that relate to your needs and your experience?
Well, we were a little bit ahead of the curve, Peter, going into the pandemic, let's say. So I bought Neville Companies back in 2018, and it was a mom and pop property management group. We manage retail, office, and industrial real estate throughout New England. When I bought it, we had a server rack. Let me also say that we have multiple offices throughout New England. We had a server rack that was 7 to 8 years old. All of our computers were of similar age. We had software that was almost 20 years old. So everything was very antiquated. So purchasing this business, I set out on bringing everything into the 21st century, taking all of our office files, getting them off property and office files, getting them off the server and into the cloud, and migrating to Office 365 and Teams. That was our first approach. So going into the pandemic, we had that, which was great. That enabled us to move 70% of our staff to remote. The other 30% is our accounting group, and that we weren't able to remove remotely because they had to physically touch the money and touch the checks and touch the invoices. So from that standpoint, our experience there, I took our server-based accounting lease management software, and we rolled it out and purchased a product that enabled us to take that data and put it into the cloud. And all of the security associated with our clients' investments. We have all their financial data on all of these office buildings and retail plazas, all living on our server. That needs to be protected. So all of that now is, offsite in the cloud and with the company that provides that software. And it's Yardi Systems. And in commercial real estate, you have a choice of basically 3 providers. That's all you get. So that we did that during the pandemic. So that was 2020 into 21. We went live with that. So that enables our accounting, most of our accounting, not all of them, but most of our accounting team to work remotely. Now the last part of our complete migration to remote workforce, well, at least automation and remote capability, is to take our accounts payable process, take that and automate that. So right now, and feel free to interrupt me, Peter, if I'm going on a tangent here, but right now, all of the invoices that come in for the 130 properties that we manage, they all come into one office. So you've got 2 people in our office that are physically opening letters and taking these invoices out and physically stamping them and putting the account codes and the property on it, taking that and then scanning it to the property manager and then physically entering that data into our accounting software. So we counted and we said, hey, each accountant is touching this invoice 7 times. How much time are we spending on physical mundane tasks that could be automated? And it was a lot, it was significant. So we're undertaking the task, and I say our final migration, but who knows what the future holds, to automating that process. So all the invoices get sent to a data processing center somewhere in Long Island, and this piece of software integrates directly with our accounting software. So all of a sudden, we'll one day a week, we'll have all the payables uploaded into this thing called Pay Procure, and then that data instantly gets migrated into Yardi, which is our accounting software. So holy moly, I just freed up 2 people, 2 accountants' time for half a week.
So, Chris, that's probably a great transition to you. You probably heard a lot of automation stories that sound a bit like that, but can you talk to kind of the aggregate of that? And does this seem like a typical story? Or is there something that other people would say differently?
I think Jeffrey's experience is much like what we're seeing. And so Kofax being a global B2B intelligent automation, so automation and AI software provider to SMB and enterprise, what we're seeing thematically across is there's a few big things. And I think this gets to the survey, which was very in-depth and very informative. So that's a great survey, Peter. But I think SMBs are more focused on buying outcomes and not technology. And that's been something that the vendors have had to sort of work with. And what that means for the vendors, we start with voice of the customer, needs and problems that the customer needs to solve for. And then we back into sort of what does the roadmap need to look like, as opposed to starting with the technology and building it out. So that's the first one, is outcomes versus technology. I think the next one is that, particularly in the SMB market, maybe a little bit less so in the enterprise, but the SMB customers really sort of want to pay for what they're using as opposed to paying upfront. And so this gets to the CapEx, OpEx, which gets to, from a vendor perspective, subscription pricing or perpetual licensing. So perpetual one-time upfront license, CapEx, capital expenditure, versus subscription. So many software companies have shifted to a subscription licensing model to cater to the SMB market, but enterprise at large as well. The third piece that I would fall on then, probably the last piece, is that, and this is again very relevant to what we've done at Kofax, is about 4 years ago, we shifted from a bunch of point solutions. So we have robotic process automation, workflow, analytics. So we have a lot of point solutions. We shifted from bringing point solutions to our customers to bringing an intelligent automation platform and an ecosystem, meaning we rationalized the technologies that we had. The complementary adjacent automation solutions went onto a platform. We reskinned it. Think Microsoft Office. It simply looks like it belongs together. And then functionally, the data flows fairly smoothly amongst Excel to PowerPoint to Word to Project. And so we did the same thing with the functionality, making sure that our customers' data could flow smoothly throughout all of our technologies. That was a major shift for us, a major investment. And we're seeing now, by bringing a low-code platform that plugs into a broader ecosystem, Salesforce, Microsoft, that sort of allows the SMB customers to now start to gravitate toward, because they don't need the deep technical developers. They don't need the large outlay of system integrator professional service dollars in order to use the technology. So that's the third big piece that, again, I think aligns with the survey results that you show.
Maybe Shay, obviously Active Campaign has some elements of automation within that sphere, but also a lot of that customer data, being able to get the insights and the intimacy. How do you see the balance of value between those two factors? Is it more about efficiency or more about the knowledge and the quality of the interaction?
That's a good question. Jeffrey's experience is it's so true for so many of our customers, right? Where they start with, there's something I want to automate. I need to get this optimized. And I think, Jeffrey, you're kind of leaning into it. You're like, what else could I be automating right now? Like, there's more to this, right? There's more out there that I could probably get some efficiencies in the business. And we see that frequently. And I think Chris is starting to go down this route too with some of the data. Generally speaking, you need both, if you will, Peter. Like, a lot of automations will start on a workflow. I need to take this process and I need to get it from point A to point B. And in those scenarios, that's good. Like you're on your way to doing that. But it's when the automation gets to a point of intelligence and can start making decisions that it becomes truly powerful for your business, where you can actually start to change a customer's experience, become far more personalized in your approach to them. And from an SMB standpoint, that's how you scale. That's how you really start to unlock some of the growth behind it. But you can't do that without the data, right? Like you're going to need the data in the tools and in the automations to actually make sure that they reach that personalized level. And Chris was hitting on this, where that has to be bi-directional too, right? You can't just be bringing data into a tool and not sharing that data back in a more enriched manner, right? You might have a sales rep that's sitting in Zendesk, taking on a customer support ticket, but has no idea what the value of that customer is, right? They might be using a different chat tool, so might not even have understanding of what are the conversations that have been had with that customer, because they can't see them inside Zendesk per se, right? And if you were to bring that data in, And then vice versa, if I'm the sales rep and I'm in my CRM going through my pipeline, I should probably be able to see what open support tickets a customer has, right? Before I reach out to them to say, hey, your subscription's up for renewal, let's talk about it. I probably need to know, hold on, maybe they have an open issue, or they had an issue last month that I probably like need to rearrange my priorities on. The data needs to be flowing into those tools seamlessly, right? So that you're making each one more valuable. But you need the integrations, you need the data to actually start to build out fundamentally what I would say are more personalized automations through that.
Avanish, what I'd love to ask you is, I know you've got a lot of experience as a mentor to startups, as well as on the vendor side with HubSpot. What advice can you give on how to tailor communication to the small businesses? Are there certain messages or channels that are really what works and what's effective?
Yeah, Peter, first of all, like I echo Chris's comments, great survey, great data, right? And I think it starts to showcase some of the areas, right? So first off, just to add another piece of data, 92% of business to business buying starts with search, right? And that is one of those changes that has happened over the last few years, right? And most often is Google. But how do you reach those people, right? And so first and foremost, I think from a channels of communication and engagement, it's content, right? And content marketing, right? So whether it's HubSpot where I'm the board of, whether some other companies I've been involved with, there is a lot of time spent on building content. But I would also echo Chris's point, which is it's not feature function content, right? That's part of it, but it's really helping educate. The SMB buyer is looking to be educated, right? Technology sometimes is a bit of a foreign beast. How do you educate them about what is the problems? How can we help them? How can we bring them value to them, right? And the point of being solution oriented. So first and foremost, I think it's the content piece is critical, and spending time in ways to help them educate through blog posts, through articles, through podcasts. That's how people buy now. And by the way, another piece of data that's been around for a little while is that 70% of that buying process happens, the research, the talking to my peers and so on, happens before they talk to any salesperson, right? So a lot of the selling has been done, should been done through that marketing process. So that's, to me, is number one. Number two, and this was very clearly echoed in the survey data, is the trust factor, right? All of us as vendors, we can bombard them. I just talked about content, but they're also going to be really looking to their peers, right? So the more you can have examples, case studies, people like Jeffrey telling their story, right? And say, hey, look, this is the impact I had. These are the problems I was facing. Here's where I found opportunities, right? I was not just looking for automation for the sake of automation. I really want to free up my accountant's time to do more important work, right? Rather than tagging the same document 7 times. So I think that level of peer-based input, right? Through, again, using tools like videos, using tools like maybe a short case study, right? That brings a lot more trust into the process. And that's certainly again, your survey showed this, but who is my SI for SMB, right? It could be an agency that's doing my work in my customer engagement, right? So for HubSpot, the agency network is one of the most powerful resources from an advisory role, right? They understand how to build the campaigns, how to engage with the customer, what's going to resonate, and so on, right? So identify who those influencers are, and really work with them to deliver, again, the right content, not just feature function, but what's the value they bring to the table.
Nice. Jeff, I'd love to hear your thought on, when you're researching new products, where do you trust for the information?
You brought up an excellent point, is that, me, myself, I've worked for multiple different commercial real estate businesses, over the last 15, 17 years. So I've worked with different applications. So I know I know Yardi, for instance, works, in a certain way. It's very forward facing, very user friendly. Other applications like MRI, little bit archaic, not as user friendly. So when making these decisions, it's, you know, a personal experience working with different applications. And then it's also talking to my peers. It's talking to other people in the industry. Hey, what do you use? You know, and a lot of people like using MRI. Why do you like using it? What's the, you know, the good, what's the benefit to it over Yardi? So it's talking to peers, talking with other colleagues here within Neville that have used different applications. And to Avanish's point is that, hey, look, it's where the most of the decision, 70% of the decision is made already before I ever talked to a representative from Yardi or from MRI. And that decision was done based on input and life experience already. So really, there was no market towards somebody like me, but our industry is very, not that it's not small, but it's very siloed. You know, we don't have a lot of options. We've got 3 to work with.
Gotcha. Chris, I'd love to loop back to part of what you said the first time you spoke was about what you're doing in automation, or I'm sorry, in integration of all the disparate components. How do you see the rest of the industry? Do you think it's going to reach kind of a limit, or is everything going to go to, you know, giant integrated solutions? Where do you think that trend's heading?
There's always going to be a role for niche players and then larger platforms. However, I think the clear trend is towards ecosystems. And so that ecosystem will have key platforms and then it will have niche players. I'll give you an example. So we work closely with Microsoft. Microsoft, a massive platform, but they very much are appreciative of the ecosystem. They can't go deep in everything. And so we bring a specialty to the Microsoft platform that allows Microsoft to keep their customers happy, because that is number 1 on their list. As they went subscription, they know to keep a customer sticky, they have to keep them happy above all else. And Microsoft simply is going to bring in another vendor. They may sacrifice a few points by bringing another vendor in, but they know that the customer lifetime value, which is what really matters, is keeping that customer, not losing a few points on an immediate deal. And so Microsoft, very, very savvy. I think Satya has done an amazing job over there. I think the stock price and the market cap sort of, you know, shows that. And so I think it's an ecosystem accounting for both platforms and niche players. So I don't think one is going to rule over the other. I think what's really important for vendors is just to understand where your place is in that ecosystem and to not have an ego about it, and to understand, are you a platform player or are you a niche player? And then you've got to place bets. And then I think regardless of niche or platform, you really have to have an ecosystem approach to it. And what that's evolving into are more sophisticated relationships. They're no longer just technology alliances. They're co-opetition agreements. So cooperating with the competition for the good of the customer. And if you do that right, then everybody eats at the end of the day. Everybody's happy and it simply works. So that's the way I see this evolving. Isn't one or the other, but rather a holistic approach.
That makes sense. Shay or Avanish, do either of you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, no, happy to. And, you know, I agree 150% with what Chris just said, right? I've been working around ecosystems for quite some time at Salesforce, ServiceNow, Google, and also HubSpot and others. And that is exactly how customers are looking to purchase, right? Which is, hey, I have a certain core, you know, maybe for my front office, maybe for my back office, however they define it. But then, you know, to examples like Jeffrey's, right? If I'm in property management, I need something that's specific to my industry, but it may be tied to a more horizontal offering for email marketing or for my accounting and so on, right? So every customer is going to have that situation, right? And the point of integrating the data, which I think has come up quite a few times, and the workflows, right? We talk a lot about swiveling chairs because that's a bad experience. I got something here, something else running in a different environment, a third one in a, you know, completely other system. That's not neither efficient nor a great experience, right? And I think your survey was very spot on. That people looking for simplicity, great experience, and solve that integration problem in the back end. I am not an IT expert if I'm an SMB customer. I need that to be kind of done out of the box. So 100% agree with both the platform notion and then the ecosystem kind of the things plugging in relatively easily.
Sorry, Peter. I was saying, like, it backs into your business too, right? Like, Peter, your business is different than Chris's, which is different than Jeffrey's, which is different than ActiveCampaign, right? And we should each be able to go out and use the tools best suited for the needs we have. Those tools just need to speak to one another, right? They need to come together through that ecosystem. And if you look at, like, the top publicly traded SaaS companies, I think the majority of them have an ecosystem, right? Where they're learning how to monetize and grow through that ecosystem as well. So the market is certainly showing up and proving that value as well.
Yeah, Shay, to that point, what was really interesting, if you would take a company like Kofax, we've been around for about 35 years, multiple transformations to stay relevant with the times. But if you look back 20 years at Kofax, we largely, if you said like which industries were your strongest industries, there was very clearly a top 2 or 3, and then a huge divide and then some cats and dogs. Today, that tier 1 is almost spread across 7 or 8 industries, meaning that, I mean, this is Andreessen, right? From a decade plus ago, software is eating the world. That is like tangible proof. The fact that we don't have just financial services, insurance, and banking now dominating our industry. It is now across manufacturing. It is across healthcare. It is across transportation and logistics. And so this is, I think, every one of these companies really being a fin, whatever you want to call it, a fintech, an insurtech type company. This is where it gets really interesting. And I think the only way those companies are able to do that is because of vendors that have taken this platform and ecosystem approach that's enabled them to adopt and scale the software.
Excellent. How about we jump to a bit of a drill down on the security issue? Maybe we'll start with Jeff again on kind of his take on improving security, and then see who wants to follow up from that.
Thank you, Peter. So I guess you don't know what you don't know. From my point of view, I don't, I wouldn't have I don't know I have a problem until there's a problem. So going, my initial migration to Office 365, that was part of it. It's, I can't continue to have fire drills. I need somebody to manage this for me. So you said third-party advisors. We outsourced our IT to a third-party manager. So they take care of everything. They pushed, they say, hey, look, you need to migrate to Office 365. Said, okay, great. And you have each year, we review what our security weaknesses are. So, and I know it's a sales pitch, but at the same time, explain to me why I need these new products. Why do I need to worry about the dark web? Why do I need to worry about these phishing emails and multi-point authentication? And so that third-party advisor says, here you go, you need X, Y, and Z. And I say, okay, this all sounds great, and I trust that advisor. Where I work in commercial real estate, I don't work in IT. I don't know what I don't know, just like I wouldn't try to, replace an outlet in my house. I'm not an electrician. So I know what I'm good at and what I'm not. And when I'm not, I outsource.
Shay, it seems like you really connected with some of that about it's hard to cut through the noise and make security a differentiator. Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, it's the unknown unknowns, Jeffrey. Like, that's those are terrifying, right? And being able to name those, even if they are known unknowns, become far more comfortable, if you will. The risk grows, right? Like, as more things move into the cloud, the more connected these platforms become, the higher risk there is for breach, et cetera, right? The way, and that's not even factoring in GDPR, CCPA, other just more governmental issues coming in to say, hey, are we thinking about privacy in that same respect, right? You can put that alongside security. It's difficult in many ways, by which you have to think about that in a nuanced way. How does authentication work through those integrations, right? How is the data stored and shared? What type of access do customers and team members have, right? So I think on like the vendor side, there's an onus in how do you set yourself up for success there, right? And I bet Jeffrey's looking at vendors who have things of the nature of they do automated scanning of their tools and systems, right? They have proactive or more offensive penetration testing, organizations that are going to offer SSO out of the box, or teams that are running more on VPNs and have general security settings in place. I think far more of that is coming to attention, and I don't know, I could go on into the privacy side of where like data centers are stored, things like that. Like all of that is growing, right? And I see that all being tangibly related.
Nice. Any follow up on security, Chris or Avanish?
I'm going to throw a curveball here.
Please.
So security, I'm going to take this from a talent perspective, specific to the SMB market. Our SMB customers, I think, are phenomenal, especially the CEOs of SMB, because they seem to have a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset, right? You're sort of like in a box. I have natural skills and talent, and that's all I sort of have. Growth mindset, you acknowledge that you will learn and become better over time, and so you learn new things. So these are, the growth mindset CEOs of SMBs are able to be comfortable with those unknown unknowns, right? And then they navigate through it. I believe so. That's the talent portion of it that I think makes this possible. And then I think the technology piece of it, and this is again sort of our philosophy as well as a vendor to the SMB market, is that I believe every customer must feel comfortable with their security posture, or they're never going to be able to deliver a great experience to their customers. Therefore, we will lose, the SMB will lose, like everybody loses. And so what we've done to ensure that they are comfortable with their security posture and investing alongside us is that we provide optionality. So what that means is that, for instance, in our technology, we have built in like password vault, but we also deeply integrate, this gets to the ecosystem, we deeply integrate and support things like CyberArk and other protocols that are more mainstream, well-known. And so we provide that optionality to our SMB customers. And I think because we serve a lot of highly regulated industries like financial services, government, healthcare, we take a lot of pride and must maintain that rigor and discipline around security. So I think there's a talent portion that I think sometimes we under sort of appreciate, but these leaders are doing amazing things at these businesses.
Yeah. It's impressive. They really have a huge disproportionate impact on the economy for their weight class. Yeah. Avanish, maybe we can jump to another topic on resiliency, and what advice you would have to small business around what they could do to really make a meaningful impact and be more resilient.
Yeah, Peter, I think, again, your survey, I think, indicated some of the key points here, right? So the notion of profitability and the notion of growth of revenue. I think one thing that has become very apparent in the last few years is the notion of, in the SaaS world, we've talked about lifetime value of a customer, right? Which is, at the end of the day, it's the renewal determines really the success of your business, right? If the customer is happy, they will renew. They have the ability to do that maybe on a monthly, yearly, sometimes every couple of 3 years. If they don't, they will vote with their pocketbook, right? And their wallets and walk away, right? That same concept, which has been kind of core to the SaaS world or the software subscription world, frankly, I think applies to every small business, right? Whether you are a retailer, whether you're a laundry, whether you are a property management company, if you're delivering value, that customer is going to renew and going to stay with you. So the notion of resiliency around really continue to deliver successful engagement, successful customer value, and really looking at the lifetime an existing customer is much more valuable, frankly, than somebody you don't have as a customer, right? So how do you make sure, the point of service that I think Shay raised, how do you make sure that you're delivering the right kind of value? And the next time they think about your offering, that customer comes back to you because they had a good experience the last few times versus someone who's walking away. So to me, that's the root, right? It's kind of building that customer trust and engaging in a way that retains the lifetime value of that customer. And again, a lot of learnings in the software industry that I think apply to every SMB customer, no matter which industry they're in.
Sure. Does anyone want to build on that?
I can jump in for a second. I think, Avinash,
Great.
that's also the flywheel, right? Where you build that trust,
Yep.
you deliver that value. I think you were sharing it's 7% of that buying process happens before that customer actually talks, right? And then Jeffrey, you probably feel this, like hearing someone else advocate for a vendor increases your confidence in them, right? And that's a growth flywheel that, from a vendor perspective, is one of the most powerful things you can do for your growth, more than in most other channels, quite frankly. So I think you're onto something there.
I like that, and it probably links back to why security is so important. If any of your customers' data gets exposed or credit card gets stolen, it feels like a huge violation of trust. And even if it wasn't the vendor's product failing them, it gets lumped in the same bucket. It's broken. Okay, actually, before the session really kicked off, we were talking a bit about remote work and collaboration and different models there. Cloud adoption is the second biggest technology trend we saw, and those collaboration tools are a huge driver there. Maybe Jeff, would you like to talk to how you're using technology to support hybrid and geographically separated work?
Sure. Well, we're everybody here at Neville has the capability of working remotely. That's not necessarily that I like everybody to work remotely. I think Elon Musk's point, it's nice to see people and it's nice to collaborate and be able to walk down the hall. But that being said, to be competitive in the labor market, and that's really what, that's 80% of my business is who we hire. And you need to get the best people to be the best company. And in order to do that, you need to be competitive and provide the option for working remotely. So that's been a big push for us, and we're just about all able to do that, with the exception of a few folks in our accounting department. That being said, I think that's about it. It's working remotely and we're there. You have to be there, and we're there. And that's actually, honestly, one more point is to get that accounts payable piece of software that'll be our last point on 100% remote operation and optimizing the workforce that we have without going back out to the market and searching for another person, which is time and expense, and that person really isn't physically trained for a full year. So you've got to sink resources into that. I'd rather optimize the great staff that we have and give them different responsibilities than bog them down.
Yeah. Chris, do you have more to add on the hybrid work and how that impacts SMBs and what they need out of their technology?
Do I have more to add, Peter? You should know me by now. Of course, I have
I
something
leave
to add.
open questions.
All right, so I would something in your survey did actually stand out to me around, I think you mentioned almost like a disjointed back office and front office, and how you were seeing sort of, a rallying cry of technologies around back office, front office. I actually am seeing the opposite of that. And so maybe it's just a trajectory, a trend, but to support this post-COVID distributed workforce, which I think is going to be more common than it ever has. It's not going to be 100%, but I think it is going to be more common than before. We were already on that trajectory with telework and things like that. Mm-hmm. But what I'm seeing is that many of our customers require the front and back office to collaborate. So ideally, your automation technology would provide a connective tissue between that front office and back office operations. A simple example, the VP of retail banking, responsible for customers that are going to open up accounts, right? They need to provide that front customer facing experience for applying for a loan, That requires an application process that typically is conducted via a mobile app interface, identity verification, which might also include some mobile facial recognition, moving that data then among various systems, third-party systems for credit checks, maybe internal loan origination systems, and then returning the good news, we found you a loan message to the customer, all within a matter of seconds, maybe a minute. But how do you do all of that? That's a lot of front office and back office. And one person has to sort of oversee that with a double click getting to front office and back office responsibilities. I think that is how you start to see this set up where organizations are converging the org and the technology needs to support that convergence. And so we see ourselves as like a connective tissue via digital workflows to enable the front and back office to work together. I think that's the trajectory that this survey that you have, if you do it a year from now, you're probably going to find more of a push around finding the technologies that can help support their organizational redesign because they have to move faster as a company. So the old school business case around cloud was really around cost efficiency, cost takeout. I think that's completely shifted to more like operating model agility, the resiliency, all of those key words to deliver that customer experience, to keep that customer sticky, to get that customer lifetime value, to get the valuation for the company up, right? Everybody's happy, when that happens. So I think that's what sort of, the cloud thing. And cloud, as we all know, cloud covers up a lot of legacy IT blemishes. We all have legacy IT estate, the fourth estate, as we like to call it, that we never want our customers to see, but we just can't get rid of it. But you can put a veneer on that via mobile apps, largely cloud oriented, to hide that. So I think that's where we're at today.
That makes sense. Avanish, it looked like you had a thought related to the legacy stack and how to move forward with some of that around.
Yeah, I mean, that is the old lipstick on a pig, right? I mean, that is all of us have that no matter how young or old we are, right? Companies move quickly. And sometimes, there's what we call technical debt, right? And that's, I think, what Chris is referring to, which is, hey, there's certain things we never got to, and now it's just part of what we do. And finding ways to, wrap around it and kind of come up with solutions to address that. I think it's a very common issue. And again, I was laughing because I think it's every discussion I'm in, that is one of those things that always gets put on the back burner, right? And you kind of have to live with it.
It's a trade-off. Yep. Great. Well, actually, I think we're just about out of time, and I know we have some hard stops at the end of the hour. I think thank you all very much for your insights here. It's been a very enjoyable discussion of this market. It continues to impress me how active the SMB space is and how much is happening. It's interesting how despite the needs of all these businesses being different, there's really some of those common themes that seem to apply to everybody. It sounds like trust, both in vendors selling to small businesses and small businesses to their end customers, is a key theme. And then making life simple. The integration seems to drive that. A lot of the way products are set up, the no code, bringing things together so the data is in one place and can power all these tools. There's definitely a lot of common needs for all of these businesses. So thank you again for joining us. I'm certainly happy to share this content with you as soon as we get it packaged up, and hope to connect with you again for future sessions.